welcome to our lovely future humans and to those who are part of our lovely 5D collective. Christ consciousness, oneness consciousness. It is an integrated brain, a person who owns their sense of self. If you don't know those words, it means that you consistently do emotional regulation skills, and that involves the mental skills of thinking with an inner growth mindset. So you enjoy equanimity. Today we talked about a couple of things, and one of which is why Maria gets the spotlight: higher self-led mindset and lifestyle points of views, POVs, and practices. Yes, it's because I do emotional regulation skills like the back of my hand, and that's because there's no energy vampires, dark auras, entities attached to somebody, Lucifers, monsters, lower frequencies that can actually touch this. Can't touch this. Do you know why? So owning the sense of self. I'm also attachment trauma educated. So the ones who will come at IHP, it's because they're getting to be their self, and they love to add with the paid content, those exercises, readings, and also spotlights, the inner growth mindset. We're working with anger, but we're going to work with more than just emotions. They love universal love transmission sessions, some of them, to accompany your spiritual and personal growth with that, which is Reiki. But I like the word universal love energy because that's what my lineage and the person that taught me used, and I think that's pretty because that's what Akashic field is, and as an Akashic Records reader, but also above all, somebody who comes with God, Jesus, Holy Spirit. I know all about angels and archangels and saints, and I learned a lot more about sciences too. So they have a way to explain everything, and nobody's going to get picky with us integrating it all because we are not afraid to lose anyone. The people who have rigidity and chaos are insecure. Those are the human beings who lead with a teenage version of themselves, lacking the capacity to notice that they get blinded by their own angry little butthole. I, on the other hand, am consistently aware of the opportunity to bring my human condition to the forefront and let you know that no one proves God, Spirit, Source, Akash, Anima Mundi, or the angels, and so nobody owns any of it. And as for personal growth, every single good therapist will point out once you're done owning yourself, then you begin personal growth. And you hear people say, but I want that, I want that now. And you say to them, there's a Zen master who tells you that this is unachievable. You can go to him. That way you can use your temporal junction to cry it out with him and basically use distress versus eustress. Or Dr. Amy Pegan to keep working on your survival mode skills and getting out of it, because as she points out, it's even after therapy that people are still going to work to get their health in the forefront. Or I can send the person to the individual who believes enlightenment is a trap and they're cynical and they don't like any of the ones who are connecting with people based on heart because, they don't cry and they didn't realize they have a blocked duct. It's not a healthy thing that you don't cry. Like, you're meant to have sadness and you're meant to have anger and you're meant to have fear, but there's a very mature way. I still work with my irritable butthole. Okay, so with that being said, why is Maria spotlighting self-led? Because I'm self-led, and it doesn't mean that you allow yourself to, forget to mention I'm flawed and imperfect with integrity. That doesn't mean that I sound fabulous. No, I'm a bossy tone and I'm a self-agent, and I actually will stand here in all my might in silence, not budge 1 inch. Therefore, you can ask, one day we'll interview my entire household, my immediate family, and they can tell you all about my tone, and I still work on it. That's my 3-year-old. But everybody else gets the one thing my mother taught me. If you can't say something nice, say nothing. And then also God taught me, and Jesus and Holy Spirit. And that's why I said by the time I was 20, so God, I met cowards. I haven't seen the monster. The cloak people, they're hurting children and human beings physically and emotionally and mentally, and they are somehow saying that they're doing the right thing by hiding them. I have no idea hiding them. Why right? They're not in. I studied politics. They can go and turn those people in, and that's about it. So, by the way, yes, again, if I ever meet Lucifer, I'll let you know. But, I know what I'm supposed to do, because you mentioned don't cast a stone, don't judge, turn the other cheek. I sent you my son, follow his footsteps, forgive. Blessed are those who believe without seeing. Believe without seeing. Yeah, that's right. Stephen Porges points out biologically rude people don't know what they're doing. Well, there you go. So when you meet those who are adaptive child part, doesn't matter to what extent, you'll know who they are, and they're angels just as much as anybody else is. However, obviously, maladaptive patterns of behavior means they have inner outer critic, drinking, drugging, fucking. They won't use stress, and they don't know that distress is really bad for your body, and that you will live a lot less longer than those of us who use our health. So when you act as if you are an angel and you're not an angel, those of us who know who angels are know that every person can be it. And as spiritual masters, gurus, and enlightened ones know, it ain't over till it's over. So the good scientists, mental health professionals, neuroscience, neurobiology, they all know about the biological paradox for those who have disorganized attachment, and it's not a pathology, the good ones. The ones who are not good, we leave that to the ones who want to hang out with them. We take the lead in supporting those who are gonna have that power. I got the power. Okay, so angels that walk amongst us are people that are not only of the 5D collective, there's also 4D collective. And that's because we each have a number of, how many stories could I say? I don't know how to say them, but let me put it this way. Last night we had a late HP show, and I shared with you just a small bit of this story. So I'm gonna share the bigger bit of it. So one, you're healed if you are healed. Not everybody will consider themselves an angel, of course, and it's a more in-depth topic than in conversation that I'm gonna make it today. But my point is that God doesn't make mistakes, and that we all are angels in my book, and that the ones who have been fallen, they can get back up and we can lift them, because we can be the safe haven, secure base that they never had growing up, and to show them that the humans aren't monsters. Now, we do have a lot of other shit going on. Don't worry, my master's degree in international relations and diplomacy has answered many questions, above all, a bunch of other things that I'm going to repeat. God makes no mistakes. Akash Source knows what's going on. There's an infinite intelligence that is way beyond any human being who says they're divinity, and then they don't know how to transcend their own mouth. So you spot Cusco's a mile away when you're not pretending, okay? But everyone is going to be there for someone, because we all choose to engage in relationships that are of our immediate oversoul and extended, and again, to make one of two choices. All you need is love. Boom, boom, boom. All you need is love. Love is all you need. Or, well, there's nothing you can't do that can't be done. Yes, there is. I can't make you choose love. You might choose fear, because your body is completely tricked in thinking that love is not real, and therefore you say, no, you trickster, you. I don't believe in you. Neutral, loving, kind, you're... And there you go. So when you meet Dr. Daniel Fox, you'll know why people who have had black and white thinking, between borderline, narcissism, a bunch of different things he talks about, they will not trust kindness, and that's any person who began their life with a monstrous situation. There's many different things that happen. So biological paradox is not funny, and nor is it meant to be called any kind of evil, demon, Knievel, medieval. Okay, so the people who do hear God's discerning, equanimous, loving tone and Akash source, and Akash is only the frequency of love, while anything negative is in fact in the person's body in survival mode. Yes, they're using an amygdala, alert. They're not bilaterally, vertically, overall integrated, and anything that is happening is being affected by their fear receptor, which is going wonky as it tries to heal itself from trauma charges, because anybody who knows neuroscientist Patrick McNamara, he will explain to you exactly what happens when you have nightmare after nightmare, and you're not going to go heal yourself, because, well, there's plenty of people who think that their nightmares are real. And then we have Peter Levine, who shares his story of how a lady he was healing goes to him, fires him, and says, "You're not God, you're the devil." And he's not. He's a brilliant mind and a brilliant therapist, who's now no longer a therapist, but he is the reason why I got humbled, and Bezel Van der Kolk, and so many more. And I cried days after days after days of my courses, knowing that, wow, you've made me such a better person now that I know that I need to not look at people always in the eyes, because I might be actually flaring up a bunch of stuff without even knowing it, and I don't want to, because they're not aware of it and they don't want to choose to be healthy. They actually do the inner critic, outer critic, drinking, drugging, fucking. They go to college, they complain about it, and then I don't know why they're looking at me weird when I live at home with my mother and I'm good with that, and I live with family. Why would I drive drunk? Why would I treat my body like shit? Why are you doing cocaine? It puts holes in your head. Why are you not eating healthy? Why don't you know how to handle your 24 hours like it's your last day? I don't understand. No, not perfect. Just asking questions of how are you treating yourself like that? You do realize as you get old, you get weaker, right? So you want to help yourself to be able to get up in the morning, not too weak. And then you hear people making up excuses of how they're going to save their family by being functional alcoholics. And I look at my friend in the face and said, okay, I can't lie, I'm not going to judge you, but come on, dude, cirrhosis of the liver. This is a friend of mine who the first 3 interactions, he couldn't see me. So in 4D, things were invisible. No one has the Harry Potter cloak of invisibility. Just letting you know. And that's because a 5D mystic will stay grounded in reality. And I was like, yeah, no, to my 4D mystic friend who, the story... So we're at a table, we're reading coffee cups, we're reading tarot. I told my friend, this is not ideal. We're out in public. We don't know how this public is going to handle this stuff. Yes, mysticism is being talked about, but that doesn't mean that we are not going to be picked on by someone who might be like, and come, beat us up or something. We don't know. But my friend ignored me. No, come on. And I said, okay, well, she's big, I'm small. We got 2 men, another girl. We'll be okay. I'm sure they won't be, if somebody sees us. Lo and behold, as the evening, we have a good time. One of my friends, the one who's Christian Catholic, who I said, look, we're not devils or demons. I know what the cloak people say, but really, they're not all like that. Some of them are smart enough to know that God works in all ways, and then they read scripture, and they know crystals were there, and Reiki was there, and they just don't like to use it all in one pile. But please, we're not anything to be scary. Again, we know who God is, and we just use different ways to talk about it, but we're all loving and kind. And so my friend, the one who's, again, Christian Catholic, she had prayed the night before, and her prayer got answered with the 4D mystic friend, which she told me later on. The prayer got answered also another friend of mine. So the other 2 people, okay, but angels, they're amongst us. Not all of them are healed, but they can all heal. And at the end of the day, that's the part of where love is always the answer. So even if we have 3D, 4D human beings, it's not like they're bad. They're just not out of this mode, okay? So that means that the 4D collective, when they're reading, they totally get tired. There's a lot I could tell you, but I have to cut it short. So I'll share that at some other point. Meantime, as we're doing what we're doing, the owner of the place begins to approach us, and as he's walking, I can tell that he's like, what the heck are these people doing? He's very gracious, he's very nice, and he just looks over and he says, what are you doing? And I look up and we're reading coffee cups and tarot. This human being man, by the way, I have another story for you. He, as anyone who is actually an enlightened one, independently from what their education is, recognizes when a human being has equanimity, discernment, love, and is able to understand that means there's a level of potential education that you have, which is why you can have so much compassion towards, because there's a story he was telling about a man and a woman, drug addicts. The woman, I think, doesn't do drugs anymore. She got pregnant. He she left him, and he lit her up on fire. She did not die. The baby did not die. He ends up in prison, and she's fine and with the kid. And I said, I'm so sorry for both of them, because to have a child together must mean they have loved each other. And now we have a child, and she got burnt, and he's in jail, and that's just so sad. And the man, unlike the other 2 human beings who are mediocre in their actual mannerisms, and I will save that for another day, turns to me and says one thing. He says, what's your level of education? And I say, master's degree. He's like, well, perhaps it's because I only have middle school. But, he compared his thoughts to my thoughts, but it was in a way of respecting that we have different ways of seeing things and thinking things, not in how dare you want people that have done some da 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 da. So when you see people who have in and out group, just remember they don't obviously know who angels are, and they obviously don't know who God is. And then they obviously don't remember, no, they don't know about neuroscience, neurobiology, mental health, or understand exactly what it means for a 1-year-old to be born and to be in a womb already with implicit memory building. And then for the 1-year-old to be born and to not get securely attached, and a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. So that's why Robert Sapolsky, with his book Determined, explains why people will have been determined, but they do have free will. For the spiritual community, and for the sciences community too, because there are those of us who know that with information and with enlightenment and with conversations, healing, love, wisdom, compassion is what leads the way always, not just sometimes, because the truth is, it doesn't lie. So when neuroscientists prove how an embodied brain works and people deny it, well, they're not bad. They just don't like that the data shows we are all the same and we all have a heart. And when a heart is broken, that doesn't mean that they're broken. And spiritual masters and enlightened ones and expert gurus and yogis and any of those who are somatic therapists and beyond, like Dr. Daniel Siegel, Peter Levine, anyone who is within the group, Stephen Porges, who are supporting humanity, Bezel van der Kolk, Pat Ogden, all my keep from Somatopia, all people that I've met that are compassionate know that every person can achieve their wholeness. Their personality patterns can become theirs. So that's where the 4D, they do a dishonor to themselves because they don't go and work on their window tolerance, and they don't go and work on integration of brain. But that's their journey, not mine. So they continue with stories that make them out to be blinded by their own self-righteous little angry butthole, because we do all see the suffering stuff. Just some of us use our prefrontal cortex and we don't suffer life. And then we know of free will. I cannot make the choice for you to love yourself first. Only you can do that. And like I told my functioning alcoholic friend in his face, finally when we became friends, the first 3 times I talked to this guy couldn't see me. And the 4D thinks that we're invisible. Like my 4D friend, oh, they won't see us, they won't see it. No, they're going to see us. Again, we don't have the invisibility cloak of Harry Potter. So 5D mystic talking sense to 4D don't matter, okay? So this human being just caught me by surprise because I was actively talking in his face at the 3rd point, and this can't see me. Guess who explained to me what was happening? Bethany Brand and Ruth Lanius in one of my trauma courses, very in-depth ones, as they explain, when you have a higher self and you're looking at someone, you're using 2 sides of the brain, and when that person has shame and attachment wounds and shit flaring up, stuff that's going to make them uncomfortable. And that is why my friend, after 3 times that I tried to talk to him, I said, oh, okay, I don't know what this is. It's like I'm a ghost, but I'm going to leave it alone. And then I found out this thing, and it's not in the right order, because prior to the course, eventually my friend from down the bar, he looks at me with the corner of his eye, and he said, don't look at me like that. I know what they say about me. I'm not an alcoholic, and I'm fine. And I look at him, I say, I'm not looking at you like that. I wasn't even looking at you. I was looking over you. And then we interacted about 3 times, and finally he could look at my gaze and he realized I'm not judging him, and that's why we became friends. And I even have a cute nickname. It's called Poopy. No, it's not. In Italian, it's a different one. I'm pocket-sized. He just doesn't speak good English. So this friend of mine, I love him to death, and he is a genius. His higher self comes through sometimes. Unfortunately, he does not want to go to AA, get rehab, none of that, and that is sad. As Gabor Mate points out, one can ask not why the addiction, why the pain. So people who disregard getting themselves better, there's an answer to every single one of them. They might not want to hear it. And we're not here to tell them what to do with life. Angels or no angels, you use whatever words you want. But my point with these stories is that angels are amongst us. My 4D mystic friend answered a direct prayer that my other Catholic Christian friend had made the night before coming out with us to God. When I'm not being seen by this human being, there's an explanation for it. It's not because I am of a higher frequency and better than someone. No, it's because I'm in my sense of self. I own it, restorative embodiment. I have self-worth. I'm empowered as a human being, and I have no attachment flares flaring up. And it's above all, you and I are mammals. So my nervous system speaks to yours, and that's why when I'm looking at you, I'm always going to be connecting to the heart, because the right mode is where the leads to the body. I'm an empowered feminine with my own empowered masculine. So the part of what I got to learn is to be a better human, a better friend, a better everything, and then to let you know there's no monsters inside any of our brothers and sisters, but the people who don't know how to calibrate their nervous system, when they're near people who also don't know how to calibrate their nervous system, they like to play these words like energy vampire and empath, and they do all this stuff, and then they create little teams, and then I think, Dr. Daniel Siegel told me what to do. He said, Maria, I think you need to differentiate more. You're not differentiating enough. I said, okay, Dr. Dan. And I didn't even have to mention I'm a mystic. And as I differentiated better, I am doing great. Now, sometimes I still need to move some people away from me because their bodies, especially when they want to do drugs and not say anything, and I don't know how to recognize, but I have smart advisors that inform me of things, and I say, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Because I was wondering what the deal was, and so I allow myself to keep some stuff secret. But the point is, I just need an arm's length, and then I'm good. And as I get familiar with their high frequency, I can be okay and not be reminded of my panic attacks. So you do learn how to differentiate. Again, IHP is higher self-led people. Angels are all amongst us. They're healed, they're loving, and some of them are not healed, but they're still loving. It's just that they suffer life, and so in their lower frequency, they don't have the same experiences that those of us who live a restorative, embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating life do. So we will be back with more stories. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.